All right. Good to see everybody. Glad to be back. Looking forward to the season. I think this time of year, all our guys are tired of practicing. They're ready to go play. I think probably most teams you talk to at this point in time are that way. But we've had a good off season. I think we've had a solid preseason. Obviously, I don't know that you're ever really ready for game one. You're trying to touch everything and figure out a little bit. It takes a little bit of time to figure out your football team and what they're about, and I think that's normal. But I think at the end of the day, they're excited. They're ready to play. I think it's that way when you go through, you got 25 total practices you can have in preseason without playing against anybody. And that's just kind of the way it is. So, we're excited about the opportunity. Going to play in a football team we're, maybe not a ton of kids on our team, but we're familiar with. We've played them 3 times. The one time we went over there, we did not win. We did not find a way to finish the game. So we got an opportunity Thursday night to go over and get off to a good start, which I think is really important, for our football program to get off to a good start. So, we're excited about the opportunity, excited about getting a chance to go see who we are a little bit. Told our guys yesterday after practice, I said, this 2022 football season, man, first impressions are lasting impressions. I said, what kind of impression you going to make that first time you go out on the field, how you go about your business? And I said, a lot of people are going to be watching, but more importantly, how we represent ourselves in the program and how we go about our business. So a great opportunity we're looking forward to. I'll open up for questions.
Coach, when you guys went over there the last time, Mother Nature kind of got in the way. Had a 3-hour delay, and it didn't seem like things were equitable between home and visitor during that game. Was there anything that you guys learned that night that you have taken and used since with weather delays or anything else in that matter?
Yeah, that was the first significant one we had, and it seemed like that year and the next year we had a bunch of them. And we kind of went to run with weather delays. I think what we learned is you got to be self-sufficient. You think about it, really pregame meal, traditionally has been eaten 4 hours before a game. Well, when you're in a 3-hour delay, just add up the numbers a little bit and see where you are. So we've learned to be prepared, to help our guys from a nutrition standpoint, making sure we have everything we need and we cannot depend on wherever we're going at all. Because you're kind of dealing with what you're dealing with there. So I think we did learn a lot in that game, John, to be honest with you. We went back and revisited a lot of things about stuff we got to be prepared for. And the biggest thing was making sure we got stuff to eat there that our kids can eat, that that can help us when you're getting those delays. And it was not the best situation to be in at all. But it is what it is when you go on the road, right? That's just kind of part of it. But to answer your question, I think we learned a lot from it. We've had a lot of things happen since then that I think we definitely learned from that night. And that was a long night, but it was a big game for our kids. Kids wanted to play. They just stayed there till they just sat through a 6-hour delay and they still wanted to play.
When you say that you learned a lot, what other than the nutritional factor, making sure that they've got something to eat in that situation, what can you give me a couple of other examples of what you've put into practice?
Well, that's the big thing, is just the preparation piece of being ready when it happens. The tough part is getting yourself ready to go after that, and when to, I think for me, you get all these different mixed signals. We're going to go now. We're not going to go. And I know I have to make sure we're 100% on board. Because keeping everybody loose, listen, it was hot and humid that night. It's probably going to be the same Thursday night. You go sit down for a little while, and it's tough to get back going. And I think finding ways to get back going is really a challenge from an energy standpoint. But I think that's something we're ready for. At least we know a little better how to deal with that. And then making sure we get ready to go, because it happened we had one at home, we had one at Alabama State, we had one at Tennessee Tech. We've had a bunch of them where we've had to go back in and find a way to get loose and get re-energized. But I think the biggest thing probably was just making sure that we're taken care of and we have something for our kids to eat. And then being, mindful of the decision, how do we get back ready to go? And I think that's a lot of it. You're really in a bind a little bit when you go on the road. You don't know, your environment you're in, that year, I mean, I don't know if there was any air conditioning. It was a small area. We ended up in a gymnasium, trying to find a way to, kind of keep our kids active enough. But that's just part of being on the road. You got to adapt to whatever's there. But getting everybody loosened up and getting ready to go and having to prepare for that, I think all that together is a lot. And there's no good way. It's a weather delay. Like, it kind of is what it is, and you're at the mercy of whatever happens. So
Last week came out. There were a limited number of red jerseys out on the practice field, and now I'm looking at the two deep, and some names that I expected to be on there aren't. Ian Cousin, Matt Olson, some of the others. Can you address where we are injury-wise?
Well, compared to last year, I think we're in great shape because we had 20 guys out going into the opening game last year. So I would say it's a win right now. We got some guys out, but it's not near as what we experienced a year ago. You mentioned some of those guys you don't see. They're going to be back. They're just not quite there right now. They're going to be back. We've had some guys that play a lot for us that have been banged up. Some guys hadn't even practiced hardly at all, and that are actually back practicing a little bit now. But because of the fact they haven't, they're not really ready to go play. And so I think that's a combination of that. But there's a few guys for sure. You mentioned a few of them there, John. It's not a lot, but there's a few guys that have played a lot of football for us they're going to be back. They're just not ready right now. But I was telling the staff, or at least the offensive staff this morning, we were talking, I'm like, if you do preseason right, I don't know how you come out of it not a little banged up. Like, it's for us, I don't know about everybody else, for us it's physical as the rules will allow us, because we're getting ready, not necessarily for game one, we're getting ready for a season. So you're going to have some bumps and bruises coming out of that. But compared to where we were a year ago we couldn't even practice. We didn't have enough bodies. So I'll say we're definitely better. Is it where we'd love to be? No, because I'd love to have everybody 100% healthy. But like I said, I'm not sure that's a lot of expertise in position. The kids love him. He bounces around, a lot of energy, a lot of enthusiasm. I've met with several of the ends and rushes, and they love him. I mean, they do. And I think he's brought some energy to that room and that side of the ball and to our team. It's just – not just on defense and the defensive end room, but to our team. Obviously, he was over there. I think he knows some of the players. Coach Hatcher and the offensive staff, and Coach Hatcher's an offensive guy. He's called plays forever. He kind of does what he does, kind of like us in a way. We kind of do what we do. Now, defensively, they're a brand new staff, basically. So there's a lot of, there's a lot of new faces on that he wasn't there for any of that. So. He knows some of the kids, but I'll be honest with you, they got a lot of new kids. They got a lot of transfers have come in. So I think he's familiar with them. Has been over there, but and that's been a help. But honestly, we know their program a little bit too, simply because we've played each other 3 times. Coach Hatcher's been there the whole time. You know what I mean, as the head coach. So I think there's some familiarity with that piece of it. But they got some new staff, and they've got a good group of transfers that have come in. It's going to be a lot. A first game, I think there's always some unknowns going into a first game. One is just your team and how they're going to respond, because you really don't know for sure. But then your opponents, you don't know. It's first game. You're working off of last year. A lot of their offense is gone. Their quarterback, they got receivers drafted playing in the NFL. I mean, a lot of production. They'll have a lot more come, because they always do. But I think, with the transfer portal now, and there's just a lot of new faces. And so you see them, you don't really know who's going to start, who's not, and they're feeling their way out too. So I think sometimes these first games might be even more interesting than normal, just because all the moving parts of all that. But back to your original part about Coach Cotton, man, what a great addition, great energy, great enthusiasm. He's doing a great job.
I think something that really stands out about the roster this year is the number of brothers that are on the team, a pair of which are your own sons. I think as a coach, you kind of try to build a family here with your program, but, thinking about your father, your sons, family and football is kind of synonymous for you. Is there an obligation for you to kind of keep these talented players together in a family that goes past just the product on the field?
Yeah, I don't know that there's any obligation. I think things have kind of worked out for us. I hadn't really thought about that question, if you want to know the truth about, we do have a lot of siblings and brothers that on our team. I think what you said, though, is really important about the family and the football and that piece of it. Like, we do try to create that environment. And what you hope you see is that, whether it's a young man coming in and a brother coming in a year or two later, they see what the program's about, and they're like, hey, I want to be a part of that because that's something I can identify with, and that's something that's important and special to me. And that environment we try to create here, which we've worked really hard at our culture. We're not perfect, but we work hard at it. So you got, I know my kids are here. You got the Benyards. Y'all gonna have to name the rest of them. I know there's some others. But I think that's a good thing, and you hope that's about your program and the way your program's, ran, that they feel comfortable coming in that program and can identify with the things that the program's about.
Last one for me. You have 7 quarterbacks on the roster right now. It's the most you've had on a roster for a single season. What is the year going to look like for most of them? Is it really trying to get them physically better? Is it about them learning the system? Is it a mixture of both?
Well, I think they're all different. I think, obviously, there's going to be several of them that are going to play a lot of football here. And then you got some young guys, because there's a good group of young quarterbacks that are in that, depending on their role, and it could change week to week, whether they're right now, because their reps are very little, if any, right? Because you got 3 quarterbacks that get you really, the third one gets very little reps, the fourth one gets 0 reps. So right now, you got X and Murph and D'Lo. Those are the guys that are, and really, Murph and X are getting the majority of the reps. So those other guys are combination of signaling, scout team, learning. They're still sitting in a meeting room. They're still a part of some individual stuff, because their time will come before they know it. And we always tell guys, just because you're not playing doesn't mean you can't learn. You can watch. You can listen. I use our quarterback coach, Coach Burks, as a great example. Back, people don't remember. I mean, he tore his ACL. He sat in the back of that room and took advantage of every minute of every meeting. When his number was called, and he didn't know when his number was going to be called, he was ready. You know what I mean? And I think for all those guys, you got to continue to work to be ready, because you don't ever know when your number's going to be called. So those young guys, you're probably not going to see them a lot playing on Saturdays, but they got to continue to get ready and learn, and they've made a ton of progress. They're all young, really. I mean, you got Davis Bryson, Adam Diaz, Nick Sawyer, Braden Bohannon. All 4 of those guys are young guys, right? And they're all learning and all have different roles right now to help our football team win games.
Hi, Coach. What are you most optimistic about coming in off of spring and summer workouts?
Ooh, that's a good question. Optimistic. I think I've said this before. Our off season's probably has been as good as it's been in 2 or 3 years, and what I mean by that is, it's our off season's tough. It was embraced more than it's been embraced in the past, and so I think that's a positive. That means there's some intrinsic motivation without somebody having to come yell at you or get on you to go do whatever's required to be successful. I think that part's been positive. I know these guys want to win. Right now it's been, in the last couple of days, been hot. It's probably as hot as it's been all preseason. Actually, this weekend was as hot as it's been all preseason. It's weird. We go through all those practices, and it has not been bad. And we hit Saturday and Sunday, and it was smoking. So they find a way to try to push through that stuff right now to get ready. But I think they're in that mode. They want to go play and see what's out there and what we need to work on and what we need to get better at. But my optimism is the way they've approached things. I think that's been a real positive. Now, what they do with that on a Thursday night at 6 p.m. Central Time, that's what we get to go see, right? Because I tell them all the time, like, listen, guys, I don't play a lick. You know, these coaches will play. We might think we want to, but we couldn't do it. If we did, you'd have to get the Metro whatever to come get us because it would probably be ugly. But we don't play, you know. We're up there, and you got to go do it. You know, I mean, it's one thing to talk about it, but at the end of the day, you got to go do it. And I think that's going to be, I think that's always in a new season with a new team that has a new. Every team kind of has their identity, and it takes a little to figure out exactly what that is. Some of that optimism could be a piece of that, you know, going into this season. So I'm excited to see what this team brings. I said that in a meeting the other day. I'm like, I'm excited to see what they go do. You know, we don't get to play anybody else. It's hard to gauge sometimes. And so I'm optimistic and excited about what this team's going to do. You know, I think, I was talking to my dad the other day, and he asked me something. I said, heck, I'll know when you know because you're going to be watching the game. But I'm optimistic about the way they've approached things more than anything. That's been a positive. There's been very little resistance to the standard, which the standard is tough here. And at times we've had a lot of that. There has not been a lot of that, which is encouraging, which gives you a lot of optimism. So we'll see what happens.
Awesome. And then my next question, the Owls were strong on both sides of the ball last season, and you're returning 8 starters on both units. Which of the 2 units will you lean on the most?
I don't know. That's a great question. I think we're going to have to see. I think at the end of the day, it's a team game and a complementary game, and this team's going to kind of take on their identity a little bit, and I'm interested to see exactly how that's going to unfold. There's certain areas that you mentioned that we have more experience than others. I think we would lean on that experience maybe than a side of the ball, if that makes sense. Hey, you know, the quarterbacks played a lot of snaps. Well, all right, we got some D linemen that play a lot of snaps of football. So that experience, I think, is something you can definitely lean on, whether it's a side of the ball or special teams, whatever. I think that's going to be out there to be seen for exactly how that unfolds. But I think there is some guys that have played football, and then we're going to have some guys out there that have not taken the snap of college football too. And so you hope they can weather the storm a little bit early, because you can say what you want, you can talk to them all you want. Your first college football game, you're going to probably black out early on till you can settle down and really go play the game. But we're going to have some guys that haven't played. And so I think we need to lean on the guys that have played a lot of football and got the experience here. I think that's where you go, especially early in the season, for those spots that we have that.
And then my next question, in your last meeting with Samford back in 2018, you rolled past them 24-10. What's it going to take for a similar result this Thursday?
I think the big thing, especially in opening games, and obviously we're familiar with Samford, they're familiar with us, is especially in open games, you cannot beat yourself. I mean, we got to take care of the ball. We can't have a bunch of penalties. You cannot beat yourself, right? We got to get guys on the ground. We got to tackle, you know. And I think just some basic stuff, you know, we can't give up we can't give up home run for them on offense where they're long plays. We got to get them on the ground, make them earn it. We got to take care of the football. We can't beat ourselves up with penalties. We can't have self-inflicted wounds. I think you cannot beat yourself. And that goes every week, but I think especially early on in the season, when you're really trying to figure it out a little bit, I think that's the keys. That's going to be the keys to the game for sure.
And my last question, you're coming off such a successful season in 2021. What preparation have you made to hit those goals as you've transitioned into the ASUN conference?
Honestly, we use last season as more things to talk about that we maybe didn't do well. You know, people have asked me about the transition from one conference to another. We're excited about the opportunity to play the conference schedule, and I don't want this to sound, but we kind of are who we are, and we kind of have our standard about how we go about our business. That really hasn't changed here, and we get ready to play everybody each and every week like it's the last game we're ever going to play, the biggest game we're ever going to play. So we go prepare kind of the way we prepare. When that time comes, when we get in the conference, obviously we'll be excited about that opportunity. But I think for us, it's just getting prepared to be the best version of ourselves we can be, and that's all we've ever said here. And I told our guys, man, our best is good enough. If you can go out and play your best, that should be good enough. You know what I mean? I don't know what that means, but if we can go play our best, that's as good as you can do, and that's all we've ever asked our kids on and off the field is to work to be the best version of themselves they can be. And we'll go to work on that. I'm not saying it's going to be it's a work in progress, but we're going to go to work on that and continue preparing today and tomorrow and get ready for Thursday night.
Hey, Coach, you spoke about some young players getting in against Sanford, some players playing their first college football. We've got Dylan Hand listed on the 2 deep, played just a few games last year. What's given you and your staff confidence to get Dylan Hand out there against Sanford on Thursday?
Great camp, consistent, shows up every day. Some guys you go through a camp and you're like, you notice them. And Dylan's one of those guys we noticed, was doing his job, was playing with a lot of effort, just showed up a bunch. He was doing some really good things, really took a huge step in the preseason. Excited about what he's going to do. Now he's getting a chance to play. Dylan's a redshirt freshman. I believe I'm saying that correctly. But he's one. You're going to see Juan Silas playing linebacker, true freshman. He's going to play a lot. You're going to see Mike Mincy, who's a transfer from Vanderbilt, but really he's like a redshirt freshman basically. He's a young guy. He's going to play. Offensively, you're going to have Nate Wright, offensive tackle. He's probably going to start. He's a true freshman. There's going to be some young guys out there, and then you're going on special teams. There'll be even more guys engaged in on special teams. But you guys have been around in the last year or so. I've talked about how much more we're going to play young guys than we have in the past, and because we have to. It's just kind of the world we're in right now in college football. But we're going to have a good group of young guys playing Thursday night, and those are some that we mentioned they're going to be playing, on either side of the ball, and there's probably some I'm leaving out right now because there's going to be more. But shoot, even Jalen Barnum, who played a little bit for us, who's been banged up. I mean, he's healthy, he's back playing, but hasn't played a ton himself. So there's going to be a handful of guys. A guy named Seth Adams at the other offensive tackle spots and hasn't played for us at all. So with that experience, that was the question asked earlier a little bit. On the same token, we're going to have a lot of young guys that are going to play really their first snap of college football, or maybe they played some in a limited role. But there's going to be a lot of them. There's some I probably didn't even mention right there. But and I know they'll be excited. Just hope they're not too excited that they go crazy when they get out there. But I think that's the fun part of it is being that young and having a chance to go play. And I know they're going to play extremely hard.
You mentioned Juan Silas and Mincy and those guys. One of the areas that you were concerned about was the linebacking core, just because of the exodus of that experience. What have these guys showed you to earn those starting spots? What does Juan Silas bring? What does Mincy bring? What does Barnum bring that are going to complement Benyard and some of the guys that have been around?
Yeah. So they're all a little bit different, but Jalen Barnum is a high intensity, high motor, loves to run and hit. Like I said, he's kind of been banged up and has played on special teams. But this is his first chance to go line up and be that guy. But he loves the game, loves to run and hit, plays it with some passion. That if you're going to play linebacker, I think you got to do it. That's the way you got to be. Juan, we had actually at another one of the linebacker spots, and early on in camp, you could just he was one of those natural guys that just he kind of run and hit, and he didn't really know where he's going, but he would run, he would hit. He's got a high motor. Both these guys are really athletic. They can run, and so you find those guys that just do that instinctively, and then you're just trying to get them line up and go do their job with those characteristics, So I think those guys. Mike Mincy's a bigger body guy. He's a bigger body, more of a box guy, but he's bigger body, than really all our linebackers. He's the biggest body we have on the inside. I was trying to think who else at linebacker is probably going to play, because there might be 4 or 5 of them play till we figure out really kind of who and what. And honestly, on your first game and it's going to be hot and humid, we're going to play a number of guys just to see where we are from a conditioning and first game and adrenaline and all that stuff that goes with it. But those guys, I'm excited to see what they do. Really none of them have played. Jalen's played a little bit here, but the others haven't. There's another young linebacker, Demarion Davis. He's done some good things as well. So it'll be interesting to see how those guys, how they really perform and what they do. Will Jenkins has been here for a while. He's another guy who's probably going to play some. Yeah, and Montreal. So I kind of, the Sams are outside for me when I'm talking to, I think, inside linebackers. So you got Garland, Benyard, and Montreal are at Sam. And then the other guys are all inside. So, yeah, so all those guys will probably, in some role or another, end up playing until we sort out some of this and get them on the field and see how they respond during the game.
All right. Thank you, Coach.
All right, appreciate y'all.
Thanks, Coach. Have a good day.